people think that quitting is the right choice when they don't know what they want. Right? So they're like, I am feeling pain. I am unhappy where I am. And their brain immediately goes to, well, the best way to, stop experiencing this pain is to quit. I find that if we can get you incredibly clear about what it is that you want and is important to you, you can make many more changes that are going to be useful to you. So you can shift things. You can get into a role that's a great fit. You can have better conversations with your manager. So it's so important to get people clear. And oftentimes when we get you clear, then you don't actually need to quit.
Welcome to Growing Through It, a podcast that supports you through the challenges, obstacles, and adversities of life. How can you come out the other side of hard times stronger and more resilient? That's what this podcast is all about. Your host, Jen Arnold, will guide you through life's challenges with expert advice and honest conversations. Don't just go through it, grow through it.
Welcome to the Growing Through It podcast. We're here with Lindsay Gordon, a Forbes award-winning career coach, author, and speaker on a mission to help people stop doing what they think is right in their career and start doing what's right for them. Through her work, she assists leaders in making clear and confident decisions so they can move forward in their careers and lives with purpose. Lindsay, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here. And then now that listeners know about you professionally, can you tell them one of the many fun facts about you? I don't know how you're going to pick, but just one of them.
So many. I take professional baking classes for fun because I think I kind of want to be a baker, but I don't know that I want to do it full time. And I don't know that I really want to get up that early, but I love baking complicated pastries because to me, it's just engineering, but with food.
What is a professional baking class? That's like next level.
Yeah. So I used to live right near the San Francisco Baking Institute, which is an awesome place. And mostly the people who take classes there are professionals. So people fly in from all over the world, but they're awesome. And they let non-professionals take classes too. So basically you can do a 5-day course that covers something like the foundations of pastry or viennoiserie, which is all of your croissants and Queen Amman and all of those beautiful buttered layered pastries. So you basically get to be in these 5-day classes with incredible people who run bakeries in Vancouver and all over the world. So it's awesome. Highly recommend if anyone wants to pretend to be a baker for 5 days. It's the best experience.
Did you ever feel intimidated?
I don't think so because they were all so kind. Everybody was so excited to be there. And I have been baking for a pretty long time, so I would not call myself a beginner either. So I think it felt pretty fun to get to, be alongside the pros.
Got it. And then what are you most proud of baking? What's been your really best pastry that you've made?
Oh, what is the most beautiful thing I've made? I made a really epic opera cake and got a beautiful glaze on top. And then you have to cut it on all 4 sides so that you get to see all the layers. And you have to heat the knife just right so that it cracks through the top part, but then slides down the side. So pretty dang proud of my opera cake.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna Google opera cake after this because I have no idea what that is, but it sounds fancy and everyone can look it up. Well, Lindsay, I want to, before we get in your expertise, I want to talk about you and how you were deeply dissatisfied with your job in 2014. And can you just take us back there and give us some insight to what you were thinking?
Yeah. So at that time, I was on my second career so far. So I have many different interests and love many different things. And I had gone from engineering to doing tech support. I was at Google at the time. And although I am very grateful to Google in many ways, it just never was the right place for me. I couldn't figure out where I fit in. And the thing that happens when you are unhappy in a place like Google, everyone just looks at you and says, oh, but Google's the number one place in the world to work. Mm-hmm. And so then it's just like, oh, okay, I guess this is a personal problem. Like everyone else is happy. I'm the one that can't cut it. And so it's a very unpleasant place to be. And it was just so hard for me. I was there for about 6 years, kind of continually trying to figure out where I fit in. And part of the reason why I do this work is that so nobody ever in the future has that experience of saying, hey, I don't think this place is a good fit for me. And everybody else saying, well, you should be happy. This is a great job. It's such a demoralizing answer to get. So that's kind of where I found myself across those 6 years at Google.
Were you was it external advice, like your friends and family that were saying, hey, you're at Google, suck it up, it's fine? Or did you talk to people internally as well?
I think it was everybody. Like that just felt like the pervasive answer of like, no, that can't be a thing. You guys have all the perks, right? So it felt like it was in the atmosphere a little bit. So whether I spoke to people internally or whether I spoke to people externally.
And what did you do? Like, how long did that last where you really had that feeling? You were there 6 years, but like, what was the gradual, like, leaving looking like?
Yeah, I tried to move around a little bit and find opportunities that were a better fit for me. And, one of the lowest and least proud of moments in my career was when my manager sat me down and was like, hello, I have been receiving feedback that you are checked out and you have a pretty bad attitude, which even just like thinking back to that moment, nobody wants that feedback, right? It's like, it's such a terrible place to be when not only are you unhappy, but then you realize that you are the one that is having a negative effect on your coworkers and on your environment. And so I was like, wow, I do not want to be this person. And so I made a switch to a different team. And ultimately, I had to get really clear for myself what was not working. Because again, all of the, outside advice that I was getting was like, this should be great and you should be happy. So I started doing every single exercise I could find. I was like, I need to work my way out of this hole. And because I have an engineering degree, my brain works in frameworks. So I'm like, what is the framework that is going to help me figure out what the plan is? So made one move, which, again, on paper was great. Had the absolute best manager I've ever had, got to work on some pretty cool stuff. But a couple months in, I was like, you know what? This feeling is still here. So I decided to kind of follow some threads that were leading me in the career coaching direction. I found that outside of my actual role, I was talking to a lot of people about their career because people would join our team and then be like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to think about a career. I don't know how to think about a conversation with my manager. So I was having all of these conversations and people said, I think you would be a good coach. I had no idea what that meant at the time. So I went and experimented, as I, invite my clients to do too, of like, okay, what is this thing? And do I want to do it? So I did one class, ended up loving it, got my career coaching certificate, and then kind of was running it on the side for a little bit before I was like, do I want to take this thing full time, given that I'm still not finding what I want at Google? And that was in July 2016. And kind of still surprising to me, I have been running it full time ever since. So we're coming up on 7 years, which is wild.
Very nice. Yes. About the same time I've been in business, and it flies by, doesn't it?
Yep.
What did you find that when you were coaching on the side that was feeding enough to where your job was okay and manageable? Or were you like, let me just get my job done so I can get back to the stuff I really want to do?
Yeah, I think what I experienced was that, so I actually again, engineering, I try to de-risk the process as much as possible. So, oftentimes people say like, oh, doing your own thing is such a big leap and, it's scary and it's courageous and, it's some amount of all those things. But also I advocate for let's test out this process as much as we can so that you actually feel really good about that decision that you're making. So it didn't feel as, wild to me because I tested it out so much. What I found though was that I had clients like in a work sense. So I was the career development person for a team. And what I found is that when your manager tells you to go see a career coach, it's a very different experience and, level of excitement and sometimes commitment. And so I was like, man, I'm doing this career coaching at Google to test it out, see if I like it. But the experience that I'm having with clients is very different when they are coming to me of their own volition and, really, really jazzed to get to work with me. So I think it was just becoming more and more clear that coaching outside of work was what I wanted to be doing so that people had, full choice in the matter of whether they wanted to be growing their career.
So just clarifying question. So when you were coaching people that their manager sent them, was it more for performance or was it more of a, hey, we don't go like a true career coaching? Was it like, I guess it was why were the managers sending the people in?
Yeah, I think it was like, we want people to feel supported and to be able to grow on our team. And this is what Lindsay loves doing. So she is going to be the resource to help you grow and figure out the path on this team. So they were pretty great about like having it actually be career coaching rather than performance based.
That's always good because that makes a completely different perspective when you're walking into that. Yeah. Well, so now that you've been in business for quite a while, what are some common career situations that you see? I imagine you see some trends over and over with the people you coach.
Yeah. Let's see. I see experiences where people think that they need to quit and that's actually not the right decision for them. So this is a fascinating kind of statistics I have discovered over the years of my business is that, almost 100% of people come to me and they're like, I hate everything. I'm done. I'm done with this company or I'm done with this job or I'm done with this field. I'm ready to burn it down. I am about to rage quit. And then of those clients, 50% of them don't end up quitting, which is so wild to me. And it keeps happening again and again and again. But I think what I found is that people think that quitting is the right choice when they don't know what they want. Right? So they're like, I am feeling pain. I am unhappy where I am. And their brain immediately goes to, well, the best way to, stop experiencing this pain is to quit. I find that if we can get you incredibly clear about what it is that you want and is important to you, you can make many more changes that are going to be useful to you. So you can shift things. You can get into a role that's a great fit. You can have better conversations with your manager. So it's so important to get people clear. And oftentimes when we get you clear, then you don't actually need to quit. So that's definitely one thing that I see. I also love to talk to people about what I like to call deeply unsexy results. So we often talk about, the very shiny, like, oh, quit and do your passion. Like, you're going to love your job. And of course you want to be, climbing the ladder and getting more title and more promotion. But so often for my clients, it's actually the deeply unsexy results that are the most important. So something like, choosing to stay in a job that might be called boring, right? That doesn't fulfill you in every way because that it fulfills your top two values is like one of the most delightful things for people to experience. But when you tell people that externally, like that's not the story that we often talk about. So I love, inviting clients to find like, what is your deeply unsexy result that's going to feel awesome to you, but that won't, feel exciting and fun to the people in your life. What else might I find? I think another thing that I see is I have been talking to people about the pressure that they feel in their work for the past 7 years. And everybody says to me that, I'm the only one who can't figure this out. I'm so far behind. Everybody else has it figured out. And I'm like, wait, I've talked to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people at this point. Please show me the people who have it figured out, because everybody thinks that they're the only one. So a game that I play now is called Pressures Bingo. And I basically share the top pressures that I have heard over and over and over again. And then my clients get to feel like, how many of those resonate for you? And just to really see that we are swimming in this societal soup, I like to call it, where there's a lot of pressure. And there's a very standard set of pressures that we are given. And so if we can start to talk about them as a collective pressure rather than an individual failure, I think that gives people a lot of freedom to say like, oh, okay, this is not actually personal. I'm going to try to set this to the side, knowing that, the culture is giving me these messages, and then I can actually figure out what is right for me.
All right. So I'm thinking about those pressures. And one of the pressures that come to mind is making money. What are some other pressures?
The other pressures are each role that I move to should be more impressive and more senior. Mm-hmm. My job is my identity and it defines me. My job has to be saving the world. I have to keep going in the direction that I have chosen because of the time, dollars, expertise, investment that I have made. My job should be cool and impressive to other people. And I should be farther along in my career based on my age.
All of those are good ones.
They're so heavy. So heavy.
They definitely are. I'm going back to those deeply unsexy results because I'm still sitting here. Yeah. And is it really just kind of what makes you like, what do you think will make you happy? It doesn't matter like what it looks like to others, but like you mentioned that it's a boring job, but it fills their value. So maybe values is something that is a deeply unsexy result, but keep going through some other deeply unsexy results because I'm
Yeah. So I take people through a framework that has a couple of different pieces. One is values. So I think that if you can understand what is important to you in life, then we get to understand how career fits into that. So oftentimes getting clear on your values can be incredibly clarifying about what those unsexy results are that are going to be important to you. I also love to have people look at like areas of fulfillment in their role. So things like career development, results, relationships, creative self-expression. So I help people get clear about how things feel in their job based on these different axes. We also look at strengths. Strengths is another fantastic way to feel really good in your role, because the more that you can align with what feels good according to your strengths is going to make a huge difference to your work. And then we also talk about working conditions. So what is it about the environment that is going to be really supportive for you? And, thinking about like the specific results. So another thing that I find so often is that there's a very one-sided conversation we have about like your passion, purpose, meaning, and drive should come from your work. And that is what we are all looking for. But actually, I find that so many of my clients get set free by declaring that that is not the case. So for somebody who was comparing herself to her partner, she was like, God, my partner like gets so much energy and loves what they do. And, why can't I be that way? I've never felt that way about work. And when she was able to say, you know what? Work is going to have, some amount of impact in the impact that I have in the world. But I choose for my meaning and purpose and drive to come from something other than work. And then we can stop having our jobs, have to mean everything to us. Like when we have our romantic partnership where we're like, oh my gosh, this one person has to be everything to us. It's really rough when we do that for our job. So for that particular person, she was like, I am actually accepting that all of my purpose is not going to come from my job. And that gave her a lot of freedom to make choices in line with what actually felt awesome for her.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up because I think that is such a pressure that you have to love what you do and it's your identity and your passion. And while, yes, that can be part of it. Sometimes it is, I am going to go do a good job. Mm-hmm. I am going to maybe make friends at work and I'm going to bring home a paycheck and support myself and my family. Yeah. Done. End of story.
Absolutely. Yeah. And people often confuse that because they're like, oh no, maybe that means you're not doing a good job at work and you're just, showing up. It's like, no, you can still do a good job. Be happy with how you're showing up. It's just not going to be everything for your life. There are many other parts of life that are important.
Yeah. And I always say it's really scary when we tie our identity up so much in our careers and our jobs because your job, you could be let go any day, right? Yep. Like something could happen and you could not do that job anymore. And I think too, I'm glad you brought that up because I think a lot of people think career coaching, I'm going to go find my passion, right? Mm-hmm. That can be kind of tied in there. So one of the things you talk about on your website, at least, is decided and waffling. And so I have definitely had friends over the years who have waffled. And the story goes a lot like, well, I know what I'm doing here. I'm respected at work and I got some good benefits. I can do my job and kind of have a life too. And they never really make the decision, but they're obviously not fulfilled or engaged with their job. Like it's just there. So how often do you see that or just waffling in the career choices that are around them?
Oh my gosh. Pretty much 100% of the time. I feel like I am waging a war against waffling because I feel that when you are undecided about whether you want to make a shift in your career, your life is on hold. I have people who have been waffling for a year, for 2 years, for a decade, and it affects every aspect of your life when you're in this holding pattern. I had one client describe it as, I can't exit the cycle of wondering what I want to do, going on LinkedIn, scrolling through jobs, getting discouraged, and then just going back to my existing job because I have no other options. And like doing that for 10 years. So the whole kind of thing that I do in my world of career coaching is to get you decided. And I don't mind if it's quit or not quit. I want you to find the right thing for you. But the most important to me is that you get to be decided one way or the other so that you can, stop being the friend who is complaining to everybody because everyone hates being that person. It's not fun. Get back to being present with your family, having energy outside of work. So I try to help people make decisions with zero regret, zero waffling, zero second guessing, zero beating themselves up. I've had clients who, they decided to go to medical school 10 years ago, and they're still on this phase of like, oh, why did I do that? And it was not the right choice. And now, I'm here where I am. And to me, it's like your life is passing while you were in this waffling stage. So I have so much compassion for the pain of being undecided and so much joy when I get to see people decided so that they can move forward in so many different aspects of their life.
So when someone is waffling and they come to you, is there obviously there's the option to stay, like to say you can commit to, whatever that looks like for you, your role, you just got done with medical school. Okay. So now you're going to go be a doctor, but how can someone make that choice? But then I'm assuming they'd have to stop complaining and they'd have to truly accept that that's their path. Like, how do you deal with that aspect of it? Because there are options. There's quit, there's find something else within the organization, but there's also stay where you are. But then how do you get them to stop? Can they ever stop going, oh, I'm going to go on LinkedIn, just see what's out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I love the framework that I've developed. So I call myself a career coach for analytically minded people because this is how I think about processing information and making decisions. So I build this very tailored framework for people, but with them, with, their values, their strengths, the things that give and drain their energy. And I just find that people want to be decided, right? They get that it's so draining for them to be scrolling LinkedIn. So I think that people really have a desire to be decided. And once we start putting together the framework, it becomes pretty clear to them. So I've had people who come to me session 1 and they're like, I need to quit. By session 2, they're like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. This is a great job for me. It's just this one thing that's out of alignment and I need to make changes there and I need to stop complaining there. So it can happen remarkably quickly. I think the thing is that nobody teaches us how to be decided. And so if you're just listening to what you think other people want, the friend that you talked about, the job is good on paper. I can do my job. I get a good paycheck. It's not that bad. That is never going to be a recipe for deciding based on the individual human that you are. So I kind of take people out of that realm into the realm of the framework that actually works for them. And then they get to go back and look at their situation and really articulate, in my current role, these values are honored. These ones are not. How do I feel about that trade-off? Is there any action that I could take there to have some more of those values be honored? Okay, let's look at the energy giving and draining. What percentage of my day is energy giving? What percentage is energy draining? How could I make changes there? So we're always looking at this two-pronged approach of, are there changes that you can make in your current role to be a good place to stay? Because oftentimes people do want to stay in the environment that they're in. Making a change can be really disruptive. So I think often people are open to that. Or we look at what could be next. But I think once we have the framework and the way of thinking about it that like blocks out all the noise of like, oh, but this is a good job on paper and you should be happy here, then people can be pretty solidly decided and just feel really good about that. And the thing that I always emphasize too is that this is a choice for right now, and you can change your mind at literally any point. Right? Something might change in your environment where you're like, wow, this was a good fit for me, and now it is no longer. Something could happen in your phase of life. And so I never want people to feel locked into their decisions, but I do want you to be decided, right? Let's spend as much time as we can in the realm of being decided, and then we can always change our decision rather than endless amounts of waffling.
Yeah, I love that you said that, Lindsay, because every decision you make, it doesn't have to be forever. I mean, we said that even about like picking Las Vegas to live in. Like, we don't do it forever. Like, let's just try it out. And same with any job. And I think that is a mental hang up that I've seen, that people are like, well, if I take this job, then that's it, right? You can never get out of it.
Locked in forever. This is the trajectory of my life. Yeah.
Yes. And something you said earlier too, I think anytime you're saying it's not that bad, that's a clue that you need to look into. Maybe it is. Something is bad about it.
I like to say when people respond like, how's your job? It's fine. I'm like, that's literally the international sign for it is not fine.
It's a job.
Yep.
So, I do say that people need to take control of their career. And really be the one leading it. But let's just say a person doesn't have a boss or a manager that prioritizes their growth. Like, the conversations just aren't there. What can a person do with that if they know they want something different with their career, but how do they approach that with their boss, or should they just avoid that conversation altogether?
Yeah, it can be really hard when the boss is not supportive. I think I always give this with a caveat because I want people to do what feels right to them, right? Like, I don't want you having any conversations where you are sharing information that doesn't feel safe or, putting yourself in any situation, any conversation that doesn't feel right for you. If there is a way for you to at least try out getting clear for yourself about what is in alignment, what is out of alignment, what you would like more of in your job, where you think you would like to be going, I think it is a great exercise to have that conversation with a manager. So we don't know that actual results are going to happen out of that, but even just getting in the practice of saying, like, this is what I'm up to, this is where I want to contribute, these are the strengths that I would love to be using, I think is a good conversation. I think there's always also ways to have conversations with other people that aren't just your manager, whether that's skip level, whether that's leadership team, whether that's colleagues. I have one example of a client who discovered that she loved presenting and being in front of stakeholders. And so that was something that really gave her energy. She didn't have that many opportunities to do it, and she wanted to do more of it. So she started having these conversations with basically anyone around her of, hey, I just did some, thinking and found that presenting is something that really aligns with what I want to be up to. And if there are opportunities to do more of that, I would love that. And so she just kept having that conversation. And then people started to think of her as the person to call if they had presentations for stakeholders. And it was great. She got to do so much more of it. She became known as that person. So I think sometimes there are opportunities to become known as the person who wants to be up to XYZ, and it doesn't necessarily have to come through a manager.
Yeah, I love that. Just saying, hey, I'm interested in this. If you have an opportunity, send it my way. And plus, think about how many people who hate presenting.
Yes, exactly. They're like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. I always think about the workplace that way. I'm like, I want everyone on a team to figure out what they want to be up to. Because I just imagine so many situations where one person is like, God, I hate doing all this spreadsheet stuff. And the person sitting literally next to them, if we were in the office, would be like, I love spreadsheets. Why can't I do more spreadsheets? So I think it's so great for teams to have conversations about what do people want to get up to and give people the work that aligns most with what lights them up as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know you've given a lot of tips for people to do, but let's just say someone's just kind of feeling about their job. It's fine. What is the number one thing you would say to go do? I mean, like I said, you've mentioned a ton, but if I just wanted to get started, is it kind of more of, less of? What do you recommend that they do?
I think the first thing is always to write down the particular pressures that you face. I think it's so sneaky how many voices are running around in there and really influencing our actions based on the mean voices in our head. And it can just be so cathartic to write them down, to declare them. For some clients, they're like, I don't even know. I don't think anyone is explicitly saying this thing to me, but it's so interesting that is running around in there. And so I am choosing to let that go and not have that dictate my actions. So I feel like that's the one thing. I'm going to cheat and do one more in a different direction.
Yeah.
I think running experiments. We often think of, I need to make huge changes in my role. So I need to quit. I need to find a completely different team. But I'm a really big advocate for running experiments of what are the tiniest things that you can do that could have a difference on your fulfillment. Whether that's, for one client who's like, I hate Monday mornings. I approached them with dread. And I was like, great, what's one experiment you could run that would have you in a better mood for Monday morning work? And he was like, I could go surfing before work. I was like, great. It doesn't have to be work related. We can run whatever experiments we want. So now he surfs every morning before work on Mondays and gets to, come into work with a much better headspace. So what are the small things that would make a difference for you to see if there's a way to get out of the pain that you're feeling?
Yeah, I like that. I like the small experiments because I'm the one who quit her job because she couldn't find another option. I was like, none of these appeal to me. Let me just quit. So I like the experiments. I think that's a good thing.
For the risk averse of us.
Yes, and I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm very risk tolerant, but for some reason that is the decision I made.
Yep.
Now, how can people find and connect with you and then also get your book Right for You?
Yes. So my website is alifeofoptions.com, and you can find information about the book there. Our book is also available on Amazon. There is ebook, there is paper book, there is hardcover. And if you like kind of how I think about frameworks and experiments and all of that, I think you will love the book. I share absolutely everything I have learned about career from working with so many different people over the years. So I hope that it will be really supportive. And then also would love to connect with you on LinkedIn as well. I try to share a lot of stories about what it actually looks like to do what's right for you, and would love to connect and chat there.
Great. I will link all of those up in the show notes. But Lindsay, before we close out today, are there any last thoughts you want to leave the listeners with?
I would love to just send so much kindness and compassion out into the airwaves, because I find that it's so easy to beat ourselves up and to, be pretty mean to ourselves about, why can't I figure this out? I should have it figured out. It's only me. So if I can just lend you some kindness and compassion for whatever situation that you're in, I find that we're able to take different action from that place of kindness rather than trying to beat ourselves up. So that is my gift for anyone who needs it.
It's a wonderful gift. We can all use that. Yeah. Lindsay, thank you so much for your time and the work that you do.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure chatting.
Thanks for listening to Growing Through It. Do you ever listen to podcasts and think, what a great idea, I'm totally going to do that, but then forget about it when life distracts you? Well, you're not alone. That's why I created 2 Tip Tuesday, where I'll break down weekly podcast episodes into practical resilience tips and deliver them straight to your inbox on Tuesdays. You can sign up at bit.ly/2, that's the number 2, 2 Tip Tuesday. That's bit.ly/2 Tip Tuesday with the number 2. I will link it up in the show notes so you can easily find it.